Hi, I'm Dr. Angela McKaye, chiropractor and naturopathic physician, and it is Motivational Monday, and all the month in November, we're going to be talking about men's health. So this week, we're going to be talking about low testosterone and what you can do about it. They've done a lot of research and found that testosterone changes all the time, different times of day, different times of the year. The peaks seem to be in February and December for some reason, with low points in June and August, which seems contrary to the Chinese calendar and way of thinking. Your testosterone really does go up and down. There's other research that shows if you're a sports fan and your team wins, your testosterone goes up, and if your team loses, your testosterone goes down. However, the problem with having too little testosterone is it can just leave you feeling so incredibly blah. It can leave you feeling fatigued with low libido, so your sex drive could be in the toilet. And this is important for women to note too, because women have a little bit of testosterone as well. And if their testosterone gets low, it can also affect their sex drive and energy levels. You tend to get a decrease in lean muscle mass. So as that drops, it often is due to low testosterone, and also letting that drop, getting out of shape can also reduce your testosterone. So it's a vicious circle there. It can lead to irritability, depression, fatigue, and ultimately also erectile dysfunction. So it can be difficult to be interested in sex or to be able to really engage in sexual activity. So this is not something guys generally want to talk about, but it does affect quite a few men. Approximately 2% of the population has low testosterone, but that number goes up significantly if you happen to have diabetes. 25% of men with diabetes have low testosterone as well. And then by the time that you're 80 years old, all the men, basically 50% of men, will have low testosterone as well. So it does go down as you age just naturally as well. Other signs that you may be suffering from low testosterone include losing your body hair, having some thinning in your beard. If you're not shaving every day, you may notice that. So stress. I can't stress enough how much stress impacts your testosterone. It impacts your weight gain potentially. It impacts your brain function. It impacts how you metabolize blood sugar, and it can just really wreak havoc on your hormones. So stress is probably the number one cause of low testosterone. Other things that can contribute to that are exogenous estrogen. So if you're male, you have a little bit of estrogen, just like women have a little bit of testosterone, but certain things can increase your levels of estrogen. Beer, hops especially, is very estrogenic. If you're very sensitive, you want to maybe cut the beer because it can increase your estrogen levels. If you have weight gain around the middle, oftentimes that's associated with stress and high levels of cortisol. And when your levels of cortisol go up, your body doesn't make testosterone. If you're stressed out and you're in a fight or flight situation and you've got to fight off a bear, you're not going to be thinking about rolling in the hay. You're going to be thinking about, how am I going to survive the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? And now that stress doesn't ever stop. So if you're working already in a really physically or mentally or emotionally stressful environment, that's going to spike the cortisol, which is going to spike your insulin, which leads to abdominal fat, as well as lower testosterone. And that abdominal fat manufactures estrogen. It's also very inflammatory. So this doesn't have to be proportionate to what you're eating. This can just be a result of the level of stress that you're under, and it can really fuel a fire that leaves you feeling very fatigued, low testosterone, not interested in much of anything. And so it's really important to put that fire out. And then another thing that can contribute to altered hormone levels is really the amount of xenoestrogens that we have in our environment. So xenoestrogen is not exactly estrogen, but it mimics estrogen. It's close enough. It triggers estrogen receptors, and a lot of that's found in plastic. So I'm going to tell you now, don't ever heat your food in the microwave in a plastic container. Avoid plastic in your food as much as you possibly can. When you heat the plastic, that plastic leaches into your food so much faster. So even if it's just a very small dose, if you're doing it repetitively or even just once in a while, you shouldn't be ingesting that plastic. And already there's lots of research to show that there are plastic fibers, plastic dust, plastic bits all around us that end up in our bodies through ingestion, through breathing, through so many different avenues. Another way that I've really seen guys tank their testosterone is with overtraining. Men who just decide to go for it, they're ultra marathoners, they're just gonna go. That is a form of stress. And your body will respond if you're overdoing it by releasing more cortisol as an anti-inflammatory measure because it thinks you're fighting off a bear. And so that's another way that you can really overtax your system and lower your testosterone. So working out is great, being fit, being healthy is awesome, but you do not want to overtrain to the point point that you are really just basically digging yourself a hole, and you end up being so tired that it's hard to dig yourself out. Other things that can be problematic are injuries to the testes. If you've had a fall and landed on something there and injured the testicles in any way, that can be problematic and change how much testosterone you're making. If you ever had mumps, and sometimes people get the mumps even if they've been immunized, there is a side effect for some men with the mumps that causes orchitis or inflammation of the testes, and that can cause a lowered amount of testosterone to be produced. So if you come in and you suspect that you've got low testosterone, there's some testing that needs to happen. One is testing your total and free testosterone. You look at other hormones, including luteinizing hormone and prolactin. You also want to rule out any organic causes of low testosterone or other reasons for your fatigue. So you want to look at the thyroid and test the TSH and maybe any antibodies to make sure that you don't have an autoimmune disorder causing some thyroid issues. And then you want to check for estradiol, which is a form of estrogen, that if that's high, then there's an imbalance there with the hormones. You want to check your blood sugar because, like we said, a significant number of men with diabetes are more likely to have low testosterone. And there may be other things depending on your particular case, because as a naturopath, I look at the whole you and all of you and not just your testosterone levels. So you'll get a full once over to make sure that we haven't missed anything and that we're looking for anything that might be contributing to your symptoms. A lot of men, when they talk about testosterone, they think about testosterone replacement, and that definitely is an option. There are lots of different ways that you can increase your testosterone. Testosterone replacement comes in a variety of forms. So you can do an injection, and that usually is just once or twice a week. Some men don't mind that. Some men really hate it. There's cream, and then you have to be careful about where you're putting it on your body. You have to be careful if you have a partner or kids that they don't get exposed to that cream and get some extra testosterone that they don't need. Testosterone treatment alone is not the only way to go. If you're doing testosterone treatment in any of those forms, it can impact your fertility. So your testes stop doing their normal function and they can actually shrink. And if you're wanting to have a baby, that is not the route you probably want to go. I would say that testosterone alone therapy is for men who are past the age of wanting to start a family. For some men who've had cancer in the past or who have low testosterone, something that's more reversible is Clomid and HCG. This is another complicated regimen. I've had a couple of men who have come in on this treatment. It does seem to raise the testosterone, but in my experience, it hasn't given them the benefit of feeling better, and they're still having some of the symptoms that they had with the low testosterone already. A lot of times men find that these can be wonderful, life-saving, life-changing because they get their energy back and they feel a lot better and they're functioning better. But a lot of men get tired with the regimen because it's an ongoing regimen, and they just get tired of doing all the things. So we'll talk more about what other things you can do to boost your testosterone naturally, but I just wanted to give you some idea of what the symptoms of low testosterone could be, so that if you're feeling this way, know that it's not just stress. I don't ever just like to say, oh, it's just stress, you'll be fine. Stress really kills people, and it can alter your hormones in a way that make life not very much fun. So know that you're not alone, and there's lots we can do about it to get you feeling better. So that's your Motivation Monday. If you've got any questions about that, you want to learn more, stay tuned, leave me your questions in the box. There's more coming up later this week, and I will talk to you soon. I am here to go through a case with you for Testimonial Tuesday, and this week we're talking about low testosterone. So I will tell you, this is not a quick fix, but it is manageable to get feeling better pretty quickly. So I'm going to tell you about a case of a 38-year-old man. He had 4 kids, and the oldest was 6 and the youngest was 1.5. So he was a very busy dad, but he also had a really super stressful sales job. So he had to travel. It was a high pressure industry. And so he was away from home, back at home, away from home, back at home, traveling a lot, erratic eating, erratic schedule, erratic sleep schedule, both at home and on the road. At home because of the kids and their schedule, and then went on the road because of different things he had to prepare for, different meetings, traveling to the next place for sales. He felt like he couldn't work out because he was so exhausted. He really had been rather athletic before and had lost his mojo there. His sex life was non-existent. He loved his wife, she loved him, but it just wasn't happening in the bedroom. And he had been doing testosterone injection therapy from another doctor, and he was injecting testosterone. He had taken himself off before he came into my office because he wanted to let that wash out and get a good baseline for where he was. So he took himself off of that program, which I don't recommend. I always recommend following up with your provider. And if you don't like what they say, just don't stop anything cold turkey. He didn't like having to do constant injections. He was tired of the long-term treatment there, and he didn't feel like he was getting enough benefit from it to really warrant the hassle that it was. He didn't want to do cream because it was messy, and he would have to do it more frequently, and then he was worried about exposing his kids or his wife to the testosterone cream, so he didn't feel like that was a good option for him. And he wanted some more long-term solution to see if there were other things he could do to boost his libido and his energy levels and feel better. That wasn't going to be a major lifelong project. We did some initial testing, and his thyroid hormones were all normal. His estrogen was normal, so he had high estradiol before in the past, but he didn't when he came to see me. But his testosterone was 275, and the lower end of the range is 270. And for men, the range is 270 to like 1070, somewhere in there, 1090, something like that. And most men are in the 600 to 700 range. So his testosterone was definitely at the low end of normal, and he was not terribly overweight. So if you remember the last video, we talked about 30% of men who are overweight have low testosterone. That wasn't his case, but he was losing a little bit of muscle mass because he had stopped exercising because he didn't have any energy. So the very first thing we did, because he was out traveling a lot of the time and entertaining clients, he would go out for beer, and so we just stopped all beer altogether, and we cut high sugar foods that can be leading to higher levels of insulin and possibly spiking cortisol. So we first thing I asked him to do was stop that, and he could switch and drink something else, or just soda water, tonic water, and lime. We stopped all plastic use because he was traveling. He was getting a lot of to-go food in plastic. He was heating stuff up in plastic, so we stopped that. I recommended then some just very basic weightlifting, even if it was just seated. I wanted him to do whatever he could to support lean muscle development. I realized he wasn't going to go out and start running 5 miles a day from where he was, but any weightlifting that he could do to support lean muscle development to help with testosterone, I wanted him to get going with. He followed up with me about a month later, and he was still not exercising because he still didn't feel like he had the energy for that. His fatigue was a little bit better when I first saw him. If his energy would have been at 10 at fully stocked battery, he was at a 2. About a month in, he was at a 4 out of 10, which is still not great, but it's double where he was. And at that point, we addressed some of his diet stuff and allergies, food intolerances, and things of that nature. And we really examined his sleep because he didn't ever feel rested. And so I asked him to get a sleep study, and it turned out that he did have apnea. Because of his travel, he really didn't want to do a CPAP. I think he did a trial of a CPAP for a month and it didn't work for him. So he ended up with a dental device that was pretty easy for him to take with him while he was traveling for work. And once his sleep was addressed, that helped him immensely. And his energy climbed up to a 7 out of 10. Of course, we're still doing the adrenal protocol that helps raise testosterone. His diet's been cleaned up, his sleep's been cleaned up. And then at his 5-month visit, he was working out with weights 3 times a week like I had asked him, and then 2 days of moderate aerobic exercise. One day he would do something like treadmill or elliptical or whatever they had maybe in the hotel where he was staying, and then he was managing to play pickup basketball with his guy friends, and so he was also getting some social time in and being able to be active and have fun. He would have 1 to 2 down days a month, but generally he was feeling much better and able to be present as a parent, as a husband, and do his job, and really feeling a lot more functional. There is hope. It does take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, but you could be feeling way better than you are if you're having the problem of low testosterone. If you have any questions, drop them in the box, and I've got more tips coming up for you the rest of the week. Hi, I'm Dr. Angela McKaye, chiropractor and naturopathic physician, and it is What's Good Wednesday, and I want to talk to you a little bit about waking up and your routine in the mornings that can help support you if you're struggling with symptoms of low testosterone. So low testosterone symptoms include fatigue, difficulty with erection, poor memory, poor mood, and just feeling really incredibly draggy and low. One of the things that can be really helpful for men with low testosterone is weight training. When your testosterone is low, you tend to lose muscle mass. So fighting that muscle mass loss can be really important. It's stress busting to exercise. It can decrease your cortisol, and when your cortisol is sky high, it inhibits your ability to make testosterone. So you really got to manage stress. So exercise helps deal with some of the stress hormones like cortisol, also increases serotonin, and it increases endorphins and helps you feel better. It's hard if your energy is already in the toilet to get yourself up and moving and motivated to exercise, but start slow. Do what you can to build up some muscle mass and go at the pace you can tolerate. It's okay if you can only do 10 minutes at a time. It's something. I really like the New York Times 9-minute workouts. There's one for strength training, and we'll post a link to that for you. And it's one that I do with my husband. I think it's fun, and so we challenge each other to keep going. So it's only 9 minutes of work. It takes 11 minutes to do because you got 2 minutes of rest in there, but it's generally super doable, and you can start out slow and make the exercises harder as you go along. So that's a great place to start if you haven't been exercising for a while, or if you're feeling really fatigued. You want to get rid of inflammation as much as you can. So really watching what you eat, and reducing abdominal fat is really important, because that abdominal fat is really inflammatory and it produces estrogen, which is not a great thing when you want your testosterone to be up. You have to be really careful not to overtrain. So don't go crazy and say, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to just push through everything and I'm going to work really hard, because you could really just be driving yourself into the ground with that. So I want you to move, I want you to exercise, I want you to build muscle mass, but I do not want you to tank yourself. And then when you are thinking about increasing, start slow, like I said, and increase at no more than 10% in intensity or time, or however you want to measure it, no more than 10% per week, because that will allow you to challenge yourself without tanking yourself. The other thing to talk about here that can be helpful in this program for men, if you're really working on getting your testosterone in better shape, is intermittent fasting. So because men just naturally have higher muscle mass than women, even if yours isn't where you want to be, you generally do better with intermittent fasting programs than women do. If it's your goal to lose weight, or to alter your hormones, or to reduce your insulin levels, all those things generally do well with better with men, and you get faster results than you would if you were a female. So if you have diabetes already, or some other health issues, I recommend talking to your physician before you decide to do an intermittent fasting plan, because that may not be appropriate for you depending on what your diabetes management looks like. But if that's not a consideration for you, it is something to look into. So that's your Wake Up Wednesday. It's great if you can work out in the morning and just get it out of the way for the day. You may find that you have more energy going through the day, and that you've set up your metabolism to work better for you through the day. I will talk to you soon. If you've got any comments, let me know what your favorite exercise is and leave it in the Dropbox. It is Tactical Thursday, and so we are going to talk about some different things to support increasing your testosterone levels to deal with some of the fatigue and burnout and other issues that go along with low testosterone. I just want to start out by talking about the basics here, so that you're laying the groundwork, so that when you do come in for care, if you need to, you've got a good strong foothold to build on. So the first thing always is diet. So not every diet works for everybody. Men tend to build muscle faster and lose weight faster than women. So you have already an advantage because you have in general more lean muscle mass. No matter where you are right now in your level of fitness and where you're at, those things are true for men just generally overall as compared to women. Men tend to do really well with a paleo-based diet with plenty of healthy protein, especially if you're going to start working on building muscle mass. You need appropriate levels of protein to be able to do that. You have to be careful about doing nothing but protein. I'm not a big fan of the carnivore diet because too much protein is hard on your kidneys. And if you're dealing with blood sugar issues or some other things, your kidneys may be already overtaxed. So you don't want to go crazy and do nothing but protein. Men can do well with a ketogenic diet, and men also just do well with measuring calories and making sure that every calorie is nutritionally dense and counts and gives you as much nutrition, macro and micronutrition, as you can, so that you're getting the most bang for each calorie. Usually that's a good underpinning for most men. You don't necessarily need a specialty diet. Sometimes you do, but not usually. Men also typically do really well with intermittent fasting. Again, if you've already got diabetes, you have to be really careful about that. I don't want wild swinging blood sugars or incredible lows that leave you shaky. That's not good. So if you have diabetes, you need to make sure that you're checking in with your nutritionist or your physician before you start doing intermittent fasting. And there are other factors at play that we've already talked about, including xenoestrogens. Sometimes lead exposure that you may not even realize that you had can be a problem, and that can be from your history even as a childhood, causing some problems today. And then genetics also play a part, obviously. You may be more predisposed to certain things and have to work a little bit harder or a little bit differently than maybe your neighbor or your best friend. The most well-rounded, the most well-researched diet is the Mediterranean diet. It does not include just a lot of pasta. It includes a lot of healthy fats, healthy proteins, lean proteins, and a lot of vegetables. So it's a nice, well-rounded diet that's pretty easy for most people to adapt to. So if you're not sure where you want to go and you don't want to do some weird specialty diet, I would start with a Mediterranean diet, and there are lots of great things that fit into that diet that you'll enjoy. The other thing that really is very important with low testosterone and climbing out of that hole is building lean muscle mass. Building lean muscle mass is really, really helpful. We've talked about this in the other videos this week. It really does help you burn through insulin. It helps you burn through cortisol, and it helps your metabolism so much, and supports the development of testosterone. And then another big one is just busting stress. So anything you can do to manage stress that's healthy is really, really, really important. So movement, doing something fun, having a healthful diet so that you have all the nutrition that you need to make it through the day. Breathing, nice deep belly breathing is important to switch from fight or flight back into a more restful, peaceful state is very important. One of the things that I think is really important that we don't talk enough about is touch. So if you are partnered, I think snuggling up and watching a movie together, hugging, kissing is so important. All those things help you release oxytocin, which is a bonding love hormone that can be very beneficial. You also release endorphins. It boosts your immune system. It boosts dopamine, which makes you feel happier, feels a little bit better. It is one of the best ways to drop your cortisol and increase your testosterone naturally. It also miraculously helps with allergies. There's some research that kissing helps reduce hives and wheals due to allergies. So it's really important. We're social creatures. If you're not partnered, it's a little challenging now that we're supposed to be socially distancing, but finding some way to have appropriate touch is really important. And whether that's giving your best friend a hug, your kids. Unfortunately, when we're stressed out, the thing that a lot of us do is shut down. We go inward, we push people away, when really the thing that's going to help us get through that stressful thing is more contact. And so if you're in a safe relationship, I really do recommend snuggling up with your partner and finding non-sexual ways to do that so that there's no pressure. So if you've been struggling with erectile issues, that's off the table. There's no pressure. You don't have to worry about it. Women typically love this. And whoever your partner is, male or female, most people really just enjoy being close and snuggling. So you can present this as a way for both of you to bust your stress. And that's it. That's the biggest takeaway for Tactical Thursday. Snuggle more. I will talk to you later. Hi, I'm Dr. Angela McKaye, chiropractor and naturopathic physician, and it is Friday, so it's time for my Friday favorites. And this week we're talking about low testosterone. I've given you a lot of pearls already, so you can go back and look at some of those other videos. I want to talk about a few things that we haven't touched on really yet, but in addition to all the things that I've given you so far, along with relationship building, weight training, getting good sleep, cleaning up the diet a little bit, I have to say that one of the best researched herbs for increasing testosterone naturally is ashwagandha. So it's Friday favorites and it's ashwagandha for the win again. So ashwagandha helps in so many different ways for so many different conditions, but there's actual research that shows that ashwagandha can increase testosterone by 17%. Just by itself as a monotherapy, not doing anything else. And in the same study, they found that it increased the sperm count by 167%. 167%. Oh my goodness, that's huge. So if you're having low testosterone and you're wanting to start a family, that's good news for you. Usually I'll pair that with other things like zinc, which has been shown to be helpful. The B vitamins may be helpful. D, E, and vitamin C can all potentially be a part of that therapy as well. In addition to ashwagandha, ginger by itself also increased testosterone by 17%. So you've got a lot of good healthy options on your side, along with changing a few lifestyle factors to really help give yourself a boost. If your main complaint is erectile dysfunction, there's also a few over-the-counter compounded things that I want to talk about just briefly, besides Viagra or Cialis or those sorts of medications. And those aren't necessarily bad. They can come in handy. But the one I want to talk about now is L-arginine. So L-arginine, you can take it with pycnogenol internally, or you can have it compounded in a cream, or there are over-the-counter creams that you can use that help your body make and release nitric oxide. And so that can help with achieving or maintaining an erection. It can also be fun with your partner. You want to be careful about using this, however, if you have a history of herpes, oral or genital herpes. Too much arginine sometimes can trigger an outbreak. If that's not an issue for you, check out the arginine creams that you can buy over the counter, and know that there are different variations that you can have blended while you're working on getting your testosterone up, so you can have a little bit of fun in the meantime. So that's my Friday favorite, and I will talk to you soon. Check those out and let me know how they work for you.